So just like I told you guys in a video earlier from today, I told you guys that once we got the weekly close that I will keep you guys posted on Bitcoin and even on XRP. Now in this video, I want to go over a lot of things, including of course the FOMC meeting, and also a few charts and catalysts behind, of course, XRP to push us to new all-time highs, because I do believe that all-time highs right now are currently brewing. And I'm going to address that. So let's actually dive on in and let's actually start off with the overall market update. So when we look at the market just from the daily and from the hourly, we are green. We're starting to flip green again, which is good to see. But the problem here is that we are still red on the weekly and on the monthly. The good news is that a lot of these altcoins are still, providing us with some great overall gains on the yearly. For an example, XRP up 359%, HBAR still up 87.9%, XLM 173%, QNT up 43.3%. So, some great solid gains from the utility players in the space, as well as even XDC up 71.7%. So we still have a lot of gains on the table for us. The question here is, do we just take these gains and run with it, or do we actually wait for the largest moves of the cycle? And that's exactly what I personally am doing. I haven't taken a lot of profits so far this cycle, but I will be taking profits later this cycle because I don't think that we are topped out yet, and I don't think that we even witnessed close to what we should be seeing around alt season. In fact, Bitcoin dominance didn't even sell off. We're still over like 66% or something like that, or 64%, heading to 66%. So we still have, the largest moves of the cycle still left in front of us to actually experience. So I'm not getting bearish right now on altcoins or even on crypto. And talking more so about that, when we look at the crypto market, from earlier today, we're still hovering around $3.3 trillion. The weekly close was not that bullish, which is why we're not seeing any significant price action on Bitcoin or throughout the market. It's been a pretty boring weekend so far. But if we actually look right now in the 24-hour, there is some nice gains, nothing too crazy, pretty insignificant compared to, previous moves. But XRP is up about 4%, ICP up almost 6%. We also have Quant up about almost 4% here, XDC almost 4% as well. So nice bounces overall. But again, I'm not getting too excited during the weekend because weekend price action can never be trusted. But we do have, price data to go off of every single time that we do get a weekly candle close, because it is macro closes. When it comes to Bitcoin, this is what Bitcoin looks like, 106K currently. If we actually look at the daily, this is what the daily looks like. This is what the 7-day looks like as well. And of course, XRP. XRP's trading volume is the main thing that everyone was focused on today, right? Up 126% almost, $2.71 billion. Love to see it. This is what the daily looks like. We did have a nice swing high into a resistance zone, and now we're actually selling off from it. Now, do I think that this is going to continue in terms of the sell-off? It definitely could. I'm going to, again, address the chart here in a bit. The main thing that I'm actually looking at is just demand zones and levels in which we should be building out a floor. Right now, I'm not extremely sold on the idea of Bitcoin having its official bottom put in. We still have a big week upcoming for us, and I'm not talking about this week. I'm talking about the next week after. So 2 weeks from now, we do have the FOMC meeting, and I'm gonna actually focus on this to address the previous FOMC meetings, like May 6th through the 7th, and then March 18th through the 19th, because what ends up happening is sometimes we will pump into the meeting and then sell off, or we will sell off into the meeting and then pump afterwards. This has been a very common theme, and of course, everyone is focused on the FOMC meeting. A lot of people actually don't even understand what happens at the FOMC meeting or cares to really kind of watch it. They mainly just trade price action off of it. Almost every single trader out there will line up and get ready to either short or long the market leading into it. And this is what ends up causing, major liquidations, which is causing a cascade in the market, which will equal either a major sell-off, or we could have the opposite, a major run-up. So I'm going to talk about that here in a bit. But first, let's actually address the Fed cutting rates. So here we actually have from Charlie Bilello, we have Fed funds rate, market expectations. So everyone is expecting the Fed to hold in June and July, and then in September is when we get the first official cut, the 25 BPS cut. Again, this would make sense because, Jerome Powell does have the perfect excuse in front of him, which is tariffs, right? If the Fed is not cutting rates, they could immediately just say, well, we don't feel confident enough right now because of the tariff discussions and the ongoing trade war, so we're going to hold off for now. They could do that into September. Q4 could be the time where we actually start to officially see rate cuts, which would, immediately surge the market leading into the end of this year. Now, we could already start to have a push in crypto, before this even happens. I said that the rate cut decision is not extremely, important for us to focus on. The market could bounce back in a big way and actually, pump during the summer, which is exactly what I'm expecting it to do. In fact, I said the month of June is going to be bullish. Then, of course, they are going to hold in October, and then December is another 25 BPS cut. So this is what everyone is expecting. This is what the market expectations actually are. Again, when I look at this, anything is possible, right? There's a lot of pressure on the Fed right now, but they do have the perfect excuse. The question here is, are we going to go with what everyone, believes is going to happen, or are we going to go against it? Right now, if we actually look at this, there's a 99.9% that the Fed just holds rates. I wouldn't hate this. I also wouldn't love it. But again, is the market going to be determined by everything that the Fed does? No. In fact, even during some of these FOMC meetings, price action was already starting to brew to the upside before we even saw any of these FOMC meetings actually happen. Also, by the way, I don't think that I need to tell you guys that the Fed has not cut rates this year at all. And so far, the market, did have a nice run up in June in January, sorry. And, so far from roughly April to now, the market has been pretty good without any rate cuts. January was the last major high for Bitcoin outside of course, our May high. The question here is, throughout June and July, if we don't get any rate cuts, is that going to hurt the market? I don't believe so. In fact, it all really is determined by what Jerome Powell says at these meetings, more so than what he does at the meetings. So that's what I'm really kind of watching for. I don't really care so much about the Fed cutting rates this month, but I would love to see it for a major catalyst behind markets. So we're definitely going to watch that closely. Now, in terms of the altcoin market, right, the driver behind XRP and what XRP does next, I'm actually watching the total 3 against Bitcoin, which is of course the altcoin market against Bitcoin, including even Ethereum. And so far, if we actually look at this thing, it's been getting wiped out since roughly November. And this is November of not 2024, November of 2022. Okay, even with the recent moves, here we have December of 2024, that nice little spike. Guess what? That is absolutely nothing on this chart. We have been against Bitcoin in terms of altcoins. We have been selling off over 60, almost 1% since November of 2022, the bear market low, which means that we have been chopping on altcoins for 931 days. Altcoins, most of them have not really experienced major gains. Like I said, XRP is one of a few. But what's crazy about this is it shows us how sold off altcoins are and how bearish the altcoin market is, which is exactly why almost nobody expects alt season to happen this year, or the cycle in general, which I find crazy. But this is exactly what ended up happening back here as well in 2020 before we have that major spike in 2021, which led us to the all-time high on this chart. But also, if we think about this, right, here we have 2018's previous high. We chopped sideways for over 1,092 days. 1,092 days from our previous high on this chart. If we actually think about this, this would take us into roughly almost November. Do I think that we need to see this entire 1,092 days roughly, fully embraced on this chart? Like, do I think that we need to wait this long? No, I don't think that we need to. In fact, I think that we start to actually pump before that 1,092 day time period, because just like I said in previous videos, I don't think that time frame structure matters. I don't think that we need to follow patterns perfectly. We only have, so much price data to go off of and so many cycles to go off of that we can't really determine what's going to happen next based off of those cycles. So the main thing that I'm actually looking at here is the percentage in which altcoins actually dropped. Back here again, altcoins were decimated. In fact, altcoins dropped 82.34%. Again, I don't think that we need to drop that much, but I do think that we possibly drop a little bit more on altcoins to really kind of kill momentum and retest a macro support zone. This would be about 65, almost 66%. It's from where our current levels actually are. It's another roughly, 11% drop, 12% drop. Which is totally fine. And that would, again, kill momentum completely around altcoins. Even right now, most people are very bearish on altcoins, even though most of them are up significantly. Like right now, if I actually read comments on this channel, almost everyone is bearish on XRP, even though it's up 359% on the last year. So again, this is actually working perfectly. Altcoins right now, I think, are brewing for an all-time high push. And going into price discovery, we just have to get through the chop. And also when we talk about the Fed, so like I said, I was talking about, these FOMC meetings. This is what Bitcoin looks like right now. We closed on the weekly in the red zone. I am not extremely bullish on Bitcoin while we are trading in this red zone. So I'm watching to see if we are going to break over this key level. And this would actually be over 107K. So we want to actually break over 107K on this chart. I'm not going to be very bullish until we get that. Right now, we still have bearish price action in front of us on Bitcoin, even though we're trading at about 106K. We have that nice bounce off of the lows. We could still retest this fair value gap, and this would be a 97.6K to about 100.7K retest on Bitcoin before we have that push to the upside. So I'm really watching Bitcoin over this coming week, and I'm also looking at stocks because stocks are getting very close to all-time highs, which could definitely be that fuel to push Bitcoin even higher and over this red zone. But until we actually get over this red zone, I'm not going to be extremely bullish this week. But on top of that, XRP, because if Bitcoin is going to have a sell-off, obviously XRP would be exaggerated with how high Bitcoin dominance actually is. If we see the sell-off on Bitcoin, I'm mainly just looking at a retest of this trend, which would be about $2.10. Right now, we're trading at about $2.26 on XRP. We're trading right at resistance, by the way, resistance from April. We're also trying to flip support going all the way back to January. So this is going to be a red zone as well for XRP until we actually get that big breakout. But so far, I do like the higher low structure that has formed on this chart. I would like to see that continue. And I would also like for us to have, the entire market break over those red zones. And until we see that, the main determining factor is going to be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be the main determining factor here for all of the altcoin charts to really kind of bounce back because, against Bitcoin, alts are very, very weak. And that's because of how high Bitcoin dominance actually is. The major catalysts that we have right now in front of us for XRP are the ETFs. If we do get ETFs on, XRP trading live and approved, even the case as well, those things could push XRP significantly higher and actually have them or have XRP break out against Bitcoin. And that would be the decoupling event against Bitcoin that we would want on XRP. But I don't see that happening just yet. I think that we still need to get out of the water right now for, Bitcoin. And I also think the big thing here is we have to get over the FOMC meeting because I think this is like the main thing that everyone's going to be watching. And just like I said, May 6th through the 7th, here we have May 6th and the 7th. This was the FOMC meeting right here on Bitcoin, for an example, before that big spike on the 8th. And also, we go back to the last one, the 18th and the 19th of March. Let's go back to March. Here we have the 18th and the 19th of March. This is, of course, the FOMC meeting. We had that nice spike, hit resistance, chopped, pumped a little bit more, but ultimately we just continued to sell off into April. Again, the FOMC meeting is not a major determining factor of what happens. Typically, we have a pump into the FOMC meeting, and then we either chop or sell off, or in this case, we actually pumped. The question here is, what is Jerome Powell going to be talking about? Is he going to be bringing up recession talks? Is he going to be talking about, how we should be fearful of the markets right now, or, we have, big warning signs in front of us? Or is he going to talk bullish about the markets? Is he going to be talking bullish about, where inflation is, and, give us a hint at if he is going to possibly, think about cutting rates in July or even in September? We don't know what he's going to talk about. That's why everyone tunes in. But what he says on the 17th and the 18th will be a big signal of what's to come for crypto. But so far, when I really think about where we're at right now on the chart, I think that we should have some stablecoins on the sidelines, and I think that we should be prepared for volatility, especially, with the upcoming 2 weeks. But also, where we closed at on the weekly, I'm not extremely sold on Bitcoin being very bullish here. So just be prepared for a possible drop, especially even on XRP. Have some stable coins, and just be a little bit cautious here. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.